Well, so now an inspiring interview with Shequita Thompson and Stephen-Reid, founders of Skills Up. They are dedicated to mentoring and empowering individuals transitioning out of the prison system, helping them rebuild their lives and to find purpose. And so, welcome, Stephen and Shequita. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Of course. Well, so your story is so inspirational. And so, my question to you is what inspired you really to start this initiative? I know it's connected to a bit of your personal journey, but how has your own journey influenced kind of the vision and mission of what you're doing as an organization?
Yes, this our organization started with our personal stories as a couple, and it's really my journey through the system as a black male. Being incarcerated and having the support of community, having the support of family, and getting to a point where you can actually, reap from the journey, reap from the success, reap from the patience that people, gave towards me and like my wife, my family, and we just want to give back in that way.
I think that's so beautiful. I think when God does something really powerful in our life and we want to do that for others, I really believe that is how we tap into his heart. Well, now the statistics, and most people may know this or maybe not know this, but Black individuals in the prison system, they really highlight a significant disparity. And so, what specific strategies does your organization use to address some of these systemic issues?
hmm So thanks so much for that question. I think when we're looking at really the impact of the prison system, what we see is while, 9% of federal inmate population are Black individuals, while we're seeing 4% of Canadian population are Black folks, right? So there's an overrepresentation in the system. Some strategies that we look to really address and highlight this is when we work towards mentorship programs and opportunity. So Stephen is an electrician, and within his trades with community, really looking at building a pathway of success so that folks can be mentored, folks can get the academic support, whether it's the plumbing, electrical, carpentry, to really build in those skills. But also, how do you reintegrate, connect back into community faith, and what are some of those pathways that you do so, right? And so folks really look to how we build wraparound supports for folks as they're moving back into society.
Yeah, so Shaquita, I want to follow up with that because I guess for me, I want to know. Awareness is really powerful if we can understand it. What are some of the unique challenges that are faced by that community as opposed to others?
So thanks for that question. When we're talking about unique challenges, what we're talking about is discrimination based on race, right? When you're really impacted by systems, right? Sometimes that means your access to community resources are not as readily available,
Right.
right? So that can mean that can impact things like housing, that can impact things like shelter. Even when you are isolated from community and returning back home, that means also that you are also looking for supports around mental health, social, faith-based supports. Those are really, really critical towards reducing the rate of returning back into incarceration. So when folks have stable, healthy communities that they're returning to, that really amplifies their success ultimately.
Well, I love that because the truth is, all of us who are a part of a faith community can be a part of this restoration
Absolutely.
work, right? And it just means opening
Absolutely.
your heart, your eyes, your mind, your home, your whatever your finances, in order to be a part of the solution. And I really
Absolutely.
love that. So how do you engage with the broader community to raise awareness? I mean, obviously, this is an issue that you're aware of firsthand, but how do you let other people know what we're trying to do, and what role do partnerships play in your work?
So partnerships is a key importance in the work that we do. We're trying to let people know that we're here, but we're not trying to duplicate the work that needs to be done. We know that this area of work, there's a large amount of work, things that need to be done to correct the issues around racial discrimination. We know that the system, is not built to support the Black community, and
Mhm.
so there's a lot of work that is needed. And so partnerships is so crucial. We have partners with churches, we have partnership with the federal government, with the correctional facilities themselves, and we've seen the impacts, and we've also seen the need from the individuals when we go inside and just have the simple conversation of how do you think this program can benefit you.
Mm-hmm.
And what has been the reception to what you're trying to do?
Uh, One thing I will say is that there is such a heightened need,
Mm,
right?
mm.
So the reception was so great. It was really around how do we continue doing this work because it's such a need, right? And Stephen talked really keenly about when we're talking about really wraparound supports. Partnerships are vital. I think when we're an ecosystem, when we feel like we're part of a family, when we feel like there's someone there, it also works as service providers, right?
Right.
And so when we have different service providers who can really naturally support the work, it helps to lighten the load, right? It helps that when someone comes out, they don't just know Shaquita and Stephen, but they actually know 10 more individuals who can open their hearts, open like supports and resources so that folks feel like they have a family to thrive in.
I love that. Well, this conversation is so rich. We're going to be back in just a few moments to continue with Stephen and Shaquita. So it's my privilege to be back with Stephen and Shaquita, the founders of Skills Up. And so my question to you, as we continue this really helpful conversation, is what have been some of the biggest challenges maybe you faced? I mean, when you build something, you're trying to break something that is broken or fix it. How have you overcome these challenges to achieve the success you have?
Great. I think, thanks so much for that question. I think with any startup, I think in its beginning stages, it's like you're learning with tricycles, right? Even though we have both Stephen and I, I've been working in this field for 20 plus years, really doing this work. Really, what we're looking at is how we're scaling an organization and looking at the need, right? And so, some of the challenges in any conversation is how do we really fund this in a sustainable way so that we can match the need that's happening, right? When you go in and you hear the conversations and the stories, it's so rich and powerful, life changing. It really demonstrates that need. And so, what we're looking for is how do we build that sustainable funding base to be able to continue doing this really powerful work, right? And so, those are some of the things that we are looking. It's starting up, building out those rich partnerships, and really working with folks who are therapists, and really building out that wraparound support so that folks can feel whole and fulsome and really coming back into a community.
Yeah, I love that. I love the word you chose there, story, because the reality is this isn't just about organizational structures or funding models, although those are important. This really is about people and
Yeah.
people who are being transformed and given opportunity to be reintegrated into their purpose that God created them for.
Mhm.
And so maybe could you just share with our audience a powerful story or a moment that exemplifies the impact that your organization has had, maybe on an individual or on a community?
Mhm.
Our story is very impactful within itself, right? Like, just being able to share our story with others. We've shared our story with young people. We've shared our story with individuals that are coming out of the system. And it's just looking and seeing how, they receive the information, but not also receive the information, how they get motivated.
Hmm.
And the story that comes to mind, since we're speaking about the Bible, is the individual, the Samaritan, that saw someone along the way. And that's the mission and vision that we have, is we want to be that good Samaritan. Doesn't matter if that money comes out of our pocket, we will be there to support. I remember there was a young person that called me, and they said, "Hey, Stephen, I just came out of not the federal system, but it was a provincial system, and I don't have anything to do." And I went in my roster, and I started calling up the pastors, calling up everybody, and say, "Hey, we have a young person here at the table. How can we support?" and we ended up getting him a job doing carpentry,
Hmm.
and that was a success. I mean, he didn't stay there because that's not what he really wanted to do, but that was an aid in the moment, and that's what we are. We are a support in the time of need.
That is so great because I think sometimes you're right. We can get overwhelmed with the problem, but the key today is that we can all be a part of the solution, right? If we're willing to see people and be a part of their story. And so, okay, so you have this amazing organization, the startup you've done. What are some of the goals that you have maybe for the next 5 years? And how do you see your organization growing to address some of the new challenges that you're going to face?
Mhm. With any organization, what I think is really important is there's a growing need, right? And so one of the things that we've done is really looking at an environmental scan, both organizationally and structurally. We've also done based on just being part of the spaces, really seeing and demonstrating that need, right? And so 5 years from now, if you ask us what that vision looks like, it really it looks at having a strong base of mentors because we need everyone. Everyone has a role to play in this conversation. We need volunteers. We also need that kind of firm funding base to be able to support and anchor, but also be able to grow the outreach that can be done and maximize that, right? And so, what we are looking for ultimately is for folks to come back to healthy communities where they can thrive and be transformed inside and out.
I love that. And so maybe those watching, maybe just give me a couple really quick ways that people who want to be a part of the solution, they could get involved.
Hmm. Hmm. One of the things I'll say is going and getting interested in your local communities, right? So finding out what the needs are, finding out what your passion and your purpose is. Everyone has a place to serve. And so what does that look like, right? And so for us, that really looks like here was a need and how do we support that? And then calling folks who have lived experiences in those areas and finding out what some of their initial needs are to be able to do that.
I love that. Well, from 700 Club Canada, I just want you to know that we are cheering you on. Thank you so much for championing this amazing cause. I bless you. I just honor all that you are doing. And we are here to do our part as well. And so maybe you're watching this and you'd like to get involved. Maybe you're a church pastor and you say, how can our church be a part of this? Or maybe an individual, how can our church do that? You can find out all the information by going to our website at 700club.ca. Well, thank you so much, Stephen and Shaquita, for joining us today. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.